Today I'm going to show you how to make this little charm bracelet with the Santa's treasure bag. And I know that I'm late in the season. It's Christmas Eve as I make this. I apologize for that. But my personal life got a little bit in the way with the birth of my grandson, and I was not able to get tutorials done in a timely manner. He was born 3.5 weeks early, so that kind of cut into the time that I was going to make sure we had time to make these things. But anyway, this is what we're going to make, and of course this can just be used as a techniques video. You do not have to have the treasure bag, and you do not have to have the beads I have. You can make this any way you would like with any beads that you would like to make. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Okay, to start this project, we're going to build the base of the bracelet that we're going to hang our dangles and charms on. So the first thing that we're going to need is the chain that came in the bag. Of course, you can use any chain that you would like. You do not have to use the chain in the bag. This is a techniques video, so you can do this with any beads, any chain that you have. So I have the silver tone that's in the bag. This is a fairly large chain. It's 7 by 5 millimeter, and the links are. And that is a really good size for a charm bracelet because it allows you to hang a lot of stuff on each link. But you can use any chain you have. We're going to be dividing our chain into 6 link segments. So I will show you that in a moment. I'm using the silver. You can use the gold, of course, too. I'm also using the clasps that came in the bag, and I have silver and gold, and I've decided I'm going to use half gold and half silver just because I'm going to be mixing the colors in this bracelet and to add a little bit of interest. I'm going to be using gold and silver findings. So then we're going to use the 10 millimeter round beads. Of course, you can use any 10 millimeter round or smaller if you'd like. You just have to adjust your length of beads that you have in your stash. So I am using the 10 millimeter round. I'm using 3 of them. I'm going to use 2 of the silver and 1 of the gold, and we're going to make little components out of them like this. We're going to just do a little loop on either side. So you'll need 3 eye pins. Make sure your eye pins have hard, at least metal, not really soft, because we are not wrapping these loops. We are simply making a simple loop, and it needs to be strong enough to hold without opening. So you want a decent eye pin. And then I'm going to use 2 jump rings. This is a 20 gauge hard stainless steel jump ring, just to make sure that it's not going to open at the end of my bracelet. I want it to be nice and strong. You can use whatever jump rings you'd like, or you can just open your chain and put your link on, or you put your clasp on the links if you would like. However, that is going to affect your length, so you may have to adjust for that and maybe use a segment, 2 segments that have 1 more link in them. So what we're going to do, let me move this back. We're going to start with our chain. We're going to count out 6 links, and we're going to separate the 6th link and then put it back on the chain because it'll fall off, and we're going to do that 4 times. So what we're going to do, get you in camera here, is I'm going to count out 6, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my 6th link. I'm going to find where the link opens. Right here is my opening. So I'm just going to place a plier on one side, plier on the other side, and open this, and then take the rest of the chain off. Now, if you're holding it to where this link falls off, just put it back on, and then close your link the same way you opened it, just by twisting it back, just like you opened it, just like that. And you're going to do that 4 times. You're going to make 4 segments of 6 links. And I've already done this, so I'm going to show you. I have my 4 segments. Each one has 6 links in them. And I'm just going to set them here. And then we're going to make 3 double loop components out of the 10 millimeter beads. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of our head pins, and we're just going to slide it on to the bead and come forward here so you can see it. And I'm just going to hold on to it like this. And I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers, and I'm just right above that bead, just really close but above it. I'm going to bend that head pin over at a 90-degree angle, just like that. And then I'm going to hold it in my hand, and I'm going to cut this wire down. Now my wires are not real, or my head eye pins are not really long. If you have a really long one, you're going to need to cut more wire than I am. However, cut off the end more than I am. But mine's kind of short. So I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch in length from the bead over, and I'm going to cut this down. And then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers, and these loops on the eye pin, I kind of have to try to match it, and they're not real big, so I'm going to go towards the front of my plier here, and I'm going to turn, grasp it and turn as far as you can, and then reposition your wrist by just moving your wrist forward and continue wrapping. You can take your plier out and then finish off your loop. Now look at your loops. If one is bigger than the other, then you can cut a little bit on the inside and wrap it again. This isn't too bad. This is actually okay. So I'm going to make sure that this loop on the other side is closed all the way tight. Both of them are closed. I can straighten them out with my flat nose and my chain nose and make sure they're both the same direction by turning it like this. And you're going to prepare 3 beads this way. This is simple wrap loop, just like that. Once you have done that, then you're going to grab your chain, and I'm going to put my gold one in the middle. So I'm going to grab my chain, and again, I'm going to open the very end link on one of the segments of chain. So let me get you close again. Here's my segment. I am simply going to open it by twisting it, and then I'm going to drop my first component on, and then I'm going to close it again. Now I want to build the clasping portion here, and then I'll build the rest of it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my jump rings, and I'm just going to open it the same way I'm opening my chain. Find the opening in the link, place one of your pliers on one side, place your other plier on the other side, and open it. Then grab the end of the chain, make sure that link is closed tightly, and then you can put on one end of your clasping. So I'm going to put on the round end, and I'm going to close it. And this is a really strong jump ring, so it usually takes me a try or two to get them closed. I'm just closing it the same way I opened it. Twist it. Don't pull your jump rings apart, because then you'll never get them back together the right way. So, just like this. Then you're going to open your next link, place it on this loop, and then you're going to place your next link or your next bead on. So we're just going to open one more, and then we can do the rest of the bracelet off camera. So let's just open one more link of our chain here in a new segment. Open it up, drop it on to the bead, the loop on the bead, and close that link. See if I can get my hands to work here. There we go. And then I'm going to open this side, and I'm going to put my gold one on, just like this, and close that link. Come on, you. There we go. He's arguing. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open this segment, put it on this bead, and then put another silver bead on this side, and then we will do our last segment here, and we will put on our clasp end with the jump ring on this end. Now, if you want a shorter bracelet, this is going to end up to be about 7 inches. And let me, actually I have one, let me measure it, and then I can tell you exactly how long it's going to be. So this is actually going to be about a 7.5-inch bracelet this way. A 7-inch bracelet works well for me. Whenever you're going to make something that has a lot of bulk to it, because I'm going to make this fairly full, I want to go about a 1/2 inch bigger. So this is why I'm making this a 7.5-inch bracelet. If you need a smaller bracelet, you can reduce the amount of links in between each component here. So you can make, instead of 6 links, you can make 5 links. If you need it longer, instead of 6 links, you can make 7 links, and adjust it accordingly that way. You can also, if you need it even smaller, you can lay it out on your ruler and see if you need 4 links instead of 5. So just adjust the links in between, put your beads on their head pins or the eye pins, and put it together. And that's how you will adjust your length. Now, a 6-inch net bracelet is small, a 7 is medium, and an 8 is large. So you can gauge that if you're making it for someone also. You can gauge the length by knowing how big the person is. If it's a larger person, make large, and so on. So go ahead and put this together and we'll be back. So this is what your bracelet looks like now that you've got it put together. Regardless of how many links you have in between, it should resemble this. And then in your treasure bag, of course, if you're making something else, you just want to select some of your charms. In the treasure bag, there are some little pine cones in silver and gold, and then there's these little charms, these little snowflake charms with the tiny little rhinestone in the middle. There's 5 of them. I'm going to use 4. I could, of course, use the 5th one to dangle off of my toggle or something if I want to, but I'm going to use 4, and I'm just going to connect them and just kind of center them. They don't have to be perfect. I'm just going to lay out what looks pretty, like this, and I'm going to use some silver and some gold in different sizes even of jump rings to put these on. So I'm going to use the larger silver ones. This is a 6-7 millimeter jump ring like I used on the ends here, and I'm going to use them on my snowflakes and on the silver pine cones, and then I'm going to use this smaller 4 millimeter gold jump ring on the gold little pine cones, and that will kind of give them a different length to lay on my bracelet, as well as a different tone of color to put into the bracelet for some interest. So the first thing I want to do, just lay out yours the way you'd like, and then lay out your bracelet. I want to dangle all of these longer ones from this side of the bracelet. So I will center them all on the links that are down on this bracelet here on one side. So I've got it laid out so I can see what side I want to put these on. This is a twisted link, so it will kind of twist it around anyway, but I want them to be on one side so that when I wear them, they will dangle down towards my hand, and then I can put some of my other dangles on the other side that'll give it a fuller look. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab one of my jump rings, and I'm going to use a 6 millimeter jump ring on this one. And I'm just going to open it, just like I did before, just twist it open and grab one of my snowflakes. And then I'm going to put it on about the center in each of my segments here. And it doesn't have to be perfectly centered, just somewhere in there. And then I'm going to close it, just so I disperse things out kind of evenly. And like I said, they don't have to be exactly centered or whatever, just you know, so that it's nice and spread out through the bracelet. And I'm going to close this tight like I opened it, twist it back, and center it on the bottom link. And so I'm going to turn this around and see. Yeah. So now that I have one on, I can turn it, adjust it, and know that this is towards one side. Oops, sorry about that. And then I will go ahead and put on one of my little pine cones somewhere in the same segment, maybe towards here, and then a gold one here, and just work all the way through the exact same way. And I'll use my small jump rings for my gold ones and just work it through. So go ahead and start putting on some charms, just centering them, and then you should end up with something that looks like this. So you can see I just kind of symmetrically put them on. So I have a couple silver here, a couple gold on the other side of the charms, and I did the same thing here and here, just so that it's spread out evenly. And they're not exactly centered, they're not exactly perfect, but they're pretty close. Then once you have done that, and I tried to keep them all on the same side of the link, but like I said, this is a twisted link, so it's kind of difficult to do. And it's not that important, it's just that I would like them, when I put it on my wrist, to dangle down on the same side so that I can have them dangle towards my hand. And then I'm going to make some little loops. So I want to get out some of the rondelles and some of the frosted white beads that came in the bag, and you can use whatever you'd like. And you can see I've already made a couple components, which I'm going to show you how to do. But I think I'm going to use some frosted white. I'm going to use some of the rondelles. I could pop in a few of the little rondelle shaped pearls. I still have a few of those left from my last project. I could put those on there too. You could use the red and the green 6mm round beads also and put some of those in. Just make yourself a pile of components, and you can do it any way you'd like. I'm going to show you how to make a component, and then we're just going to make a bunch of them and just start putting them on the chain. And I'll put one on this side, and then one on this side, and one on that side of the chain, and make it nice and full. So let me get you close so you can see what that looks like. And then I'm just going to set it aside. And I am going to use, like you can see this component I made, I'm going to use also some 8/0 seed beads on these rondelles, simply because it gives it a little bit more length to make my loop. Sometimes your hole in your bead will be too big and your head pin will fall through. That's one reason to use a seed bead if you need to. And another is it gives more length to make your loop, because sometimes if you can't get your loop really tight against the bead, then it the bead travels up and down the head pin, and your little head pin sticks out on the end. It's not as pretty, and it catches on stuff. So to give myself a little bit more length so I didn't have to work so hard to make my loop, I put a little seed bead on the end. So I'm going to grab a couple little 8/0 seed beads here, and I'm just using a head pin, a nice strong head pin. So this is probably like a 20 gauge, and it's of course half hard, so that it will hold the loop and I don't have to wrap the loop. If you have softer ones and you have to wrap it, then you're going to have to use a jump ring to put it on your chain, unless you wrap it on your chain, and that's kind of a pain. So I'm going to put on my little head pin here, I'm going to put on an 8/0 seed bead, and then I'm going to put on my bead. Then I'm going to grab some flat nose pliers, and I am just going to bend it over into a right angle like this, right above the bead, just like this. Bring it in. I'm going to cut it down to about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. And then I am going to grab my round nose pliers, if I can find them. And of course, there they are. I'm going to put this towards the end and not too far down. I don't want a huge loop. And I'm going to start to turn. I'm going to turn as far as I can, and then I'm going to bring my wrist forward until I position my plier back towards the back of the loop, and then continue to turn. And then to close it, I can take my plier out, put the tip of it back in the loop, and close it. Now, I can straighten out that loop, and this is what I have. Now, I can just grab this, and I can open it up, and I can grab my bracelet, lay it back out, and decide where I want to put this on my bracelet. So I've got it open. I'm just going to grab a hold of the chain and put it here. Just like this. And then I'm going to close it. Now this doesn't have to be done in any specific order. If I can close this, there we go. I've closed that loop. It's a nice strong head pin, so it will hold that very nicely. And I can lay back out my bracelet and see where I want to put my next one. So I'm just going to make a bunch of these really simple units. I'm going to do the same with these frosted beads here. And I'm using my gold head pins, and I'm just going to make a whole bunch of units, and I'm going to sprinkle them throughout. However I think is good. You can make them in advance, you can lay them out, or you can just make a bunch and just start putting them on however you want. It doesn't have to be in any specific order. It can be any way you want to put it on there. So I'm going to go ahead and make a few more of these components. On my frosted ones, I did not drop a seed bead down. I just used it directly on the head pin. That way I get some different length in my dangles also. And you can make some of your loops a little bit bigger, a little bit shorter, so that you get some variation in length if you want that to be a little bit more interest to your piece. And I think I'm going to use maybe a few of these red ones and some of the green ones of the 6mm round beads that are in the bag, and just mix it all together. And you can even, if you'd like, put 2 beads on a head pin and make your units that way, so you get a bit of a longer unit, or maybe some interest, 2 different colors, whatever you would like. This is completely up to your creative inspiration here. So let's make a whole bunch of units, put them on, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, this is what I have made for my components. I put together one of the red and one of the green, and I would alternate them. Sometimes I put green on the bottom, sometimes I put red on the bottom. Like this. Well, I guess I should pick up one like this. And I made about 15 of those. I made I think 10 of the rondelles that I showed you how to make, and probably about 12 of these. Doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you basically how many I have made, so that if you want to do something very similar, you can. And then I'm just going to begin putting these on randomly wherever I want to put them on. I'll put some on one side of the chain and then some on the other side of the chain, just to make it bulkier and to make it more even on both sides, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Okay, so here's basically what I came up with, and you can see there's obvious divisions where I put the big beads in between, and I think it makes kind of an interesting look. Of course, laying out like this, it's just kind of boggled up mess. But I think it looks really cute. I'm going to put it on my wrist and let you see what it looks like. What I did was just make sure that there was a charm on either side of all the chains. So I put a charm on one side of a link and then a charm on the other side of each link, the best I could. Some of them may not have 2, but most of them do. So I just tried to spread it out, and I tried to spread out my colors and things so that they're somewhat even throughout the piece. And I'll put it on and let you see what it looks like. And here it is on the wrist. I think it's really cute. And of course, if you could see it hanging down, it is just a little bit long for me. I think I would go more 7 inches instead of 7.5. So what I would probably do to make it a little bit smaller is either not connect jump rings on either side, just connect the clasping to the chain. That would give me just a little bit less length. or I could do one segment of 5, one segment of 6, one segment, or maybe the center segments of 5 links and the out ones of 6, or just all of them with 5, something like that. Just something that would keep it symmetrical and just make it a little bit shorter of the basic chain for me. But other than that, I think it turned out really cute. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you make one either with your bag or make one with just your stash that isn't Christmas themed. I like the way the individual beads are in between. I think it gives some really nice interest to the piece, like this. I think that's pretty. But anyway, that's what that looks like, and if it hangs down like this, that's what that looks like, and I hope you like it. See you later.